Every time. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name's Natalie. I'll be here today to share my lupus story. The motivation for sharing my story now is, firstly, I wanted to raise awareness, and secondly, because I'm currently in the midst of a lupus relapse. The first thing I did when I found out that my lupus had become active again was go on YouTube and look for tons of stories from other people. So I just felt if I could share my story and I could help just one person with it, then, mission accomplished. And if it does help you, then please say hello. So firstly, for those who maybe here for a friend, trying to understand more about it.
Lupus is an autoimmune disease whereby the body's immune system becomes hyperactive and attacks normal, healthy tissue. There are 3 different severities of lupus. It can be mild, where it affects joint, skin, and tiredness. It can be moderate, where it causes inflammation of other parts of the skin and body, including your lungs, heart, and kidneys. Or it can be severe, whereby the inflammation causes severe damage to the heart, lungs, brain, or kidneys.
Okay, so I'm going to post a few links below for the main websites that I've used to kind of research into lupus, which were really helpful. So my first memory of any lupus symptoms that I had was when I was around 12 years old. I would go out into the sun for maybe like 5 minutes, and then I would instantly get this rash all over my body. I think, back then my parents just put it down to she's just sensitive to the sun, like she's got sensitive skin, so they would just put sun cream on and that would be fine. So it wasn't really ever looked into. And I felt like as I got older, those kind of skin symptoms increased. So I was starting to get more hives when I went out into the sun. So when I was kind of in my teenage years, sort of, early 20s, good old Google being your best friend, you just kind of look it up and self-diagnose myself as allergic to the sun. Which, I look back and think, why didn't I just go to the doctors? Initially, I only really had the skin sort of effects of lupus. And then my lupus really actually just kicked in when I was about 23. Early of 2014, I started suffering from severe fatigue. So initially I was able to sleep like 7 hours and feel amazing, and then it just suddenly hit me one day, and I kind of noticed after a few weeks of this going on where I was sleeping more and more, but I was just still feeling so exhausted after work. And over time, when you feel tired all the time, it's just so debilitating, and you don't know what to do. So I think this went on for about 6 months, where I was just tired and I didn't know what to do about it. I started eating healthier and going to yoga, and then I started noticing odd symptoms after that. So swelling on my ankles, swelling on my eyes. I was starting to feel more joint pain. So in the morning my knees were a bit stiff, didn't think too much about it. And then by the evening, it was like a struggle to get up the stairs. I don't know what I was thinking. I put it down to my yoga, my increased exercise regime I was trying to use to kind of combat the fatigue. So I just kind of put it off. And also in the UK, when you book a doctor's appointment, it usually takes 2 weeks to get an appointment. So by the time I would get to the appointment, I wouldn't have these symptoms anymore, because they were just kind of coming and going all the time. And I think that's what makes lupus really hard to diagnose, because you get all these symptoms and then they go away. And you think, I'm healthy, I'm okay, I was fine 2 months ago. It must be something I've eaten, something I've done, maybe I'm not resting enough, and you have all these excuses in your head. You just put off seeing the doctor. I left it for a long time. And then at the same time this was all happening, my grandma was actually very sick. She lives in Hong Kong, ended up going to Hong Kong, and that's when it got really bad. It went downhill very fast. It was a strange one because I'm not sure what triggered it. I mean, they say that, you know, when you have lupus, you are sensitive to, you know, sunlight and things like that. But I always felt in humid countries, my skin rashes weren't as severe. So I don't know if it was the heat. But whatever it was, it just triggered everything. My feet and legs had like just swollen up so much to the point where, you know, it was a struggle to even like put my shoes on, and walking was quite difficult. Still had the fatigue, I had nausea, dizziness, my face had swollen up. The joint pain was just everywhere to the point where like all my finger joints had gone stiff and I couldn't even like open and close my hands. It was so painful. I don't know how I got through those 2 weeks, but I obviously knew something was really wrong at this point. So after 2 weeks in Hong Kong, I flew back to the UK, got blood tests done immediately, and then after 2 days, the doctors rang and said that my kidneys were not functioning the way they should. So what they wanted to do was kind of like monitor my blood over the next few weeks. So they did that for the first maybe couple of days. I was going back and forth getting blood tests. And then I think it was the third blood test where for some reason they couldn't find the results. So the GP told me to go to the hospital and get my bloods done there. At the time when I had actually got back to the UK, my symptoms had really calmed down. I mean, I was still a bit swollen, the joints were a little bit stiff, but it wasn't as bad. You know, I wasn't overly concerned at the time just because I had got a bit better. So I went to hospital, waited 2-3 hours or whatever to get my blood test, and then as soon as I got my results at the hospital, they said you have to be admitted. You know, that was a complete shock. I really wanted to avoid it, but couldn't. So they said there was protein in my urine. So once being admitted into hospital, I was there for about a week where they monitored my bloods, and then they eventually moved me to another hospital which had a renal ward, so specialist. Did a kidney biopsy, and then that's when they said, yep, you have lupus nephritis. You have lupus nephritis. And you know, at that point, I still don't think I really fully understood the severity of my situation. I know it sounds really crazy, but you know, every time when you get ill, or when I got ill before, you just think, oh yeah, I'll just take a few pills, a bit of antibiotics, it'll be all fine in like a month or so. You know, I hadn't researched into it, so I just really didn't know. And then it's only when they kind of explained the treatment process where I was like, oh wait, hang on, this is way more serious than I initially thought. And I think the treatment process was more of the scary part. It was more of the challenge because it's so unknown. You don't know how your body's going to react and things like that. So yeah, it was definitely the most daunting time of my life. But you know, here I am, and I am still smiling. You know, that was kind of like my story in a nutshell. But I really want to go into more of the treatment side of things, because I know that is one of the hardest parts. So the first time when I was diagnosed, they put me on 6 infusions of cyclophosphamide, 60 milligrams of prednisolone steroids, and then I was put on mycophenolate. So I'd love to do another video where I kind of go through the medication side of things and side effects that I went through, and you know, how I overcame some of the challenges in there. That was a quick overview of my story, but thank you for listening and stay safe, everyone.